1 pound, 12 ounces, set aside to die. That was 1925. 20 years later, he's closing a metal door on a burning room. And on the other side, his friends are dying. Everyday men served our country in World War II, but Bill Thomas was definitely not an everyday man. This is the story of a man who was never supposed to survive, but he did. 3 times, to be accurate. This is about a survivor. This is about William Reese Thomas. This is about my dad. Since the day he took his first breath, he was a survivor. They placed him in a shoebox, not a crib, not an incubator, a shoebox. Because in 1925, that's what you did with premature babies. They made them comfortable and waited for them to die. Under 2% lived. There were no incubators until 1927. My father weighed 1 pound and 12 ounces. For context, that's lighter than a bag of sugar, weighing about the same as a jar of peanut butter, and equal to 3 cell phones. The doctors told my grandmother, take him home. The chances are slim for him to survive.
Grandma, my dad's mother, never knew she was even pregnant when she had him. They put him in a shoebox and tucked cotton balls around him and put down the oven door, and that's where he slept, close to heat. And they never thought he would live, but he did.
But here's what they did not know about my dad. He didn't know how to quit. Weeks passed, then months. Against every medical textbook, every statistical probability, every doctor's prediction, he lived. They called him a medical wonder. They wrote about him in journals because babies like him simply did not survive. But he did, and that was just the beginning. My dad started school at 7, his body still catching up from that impossible start. He grew up on a mushroom farm in Ohio, learning to work with his hands, knowing that survival meant showing up every single day. When he started high school, his father pulled him out. "We need you in the greenhouses," he said. 2 months later, the U.S. Navy pulled him from those greenhouses. He was 18 years old, a farm boy who'd barely been to school, who'd never seen the ocean. They put him on a destroyer called the USS Hyman and sent him to the South Pacific. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the Philippines, 3 of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific theater. And my father was in all of them. But here's the thing about my dad. He never talked about any of it. Not to his wife, not to his children. The war was a locked room in his mind until the day it burst open. April of 1945, off the coast of Okinawa, the USS Hyman is on radar picket duty. Basically, they're bait, sitting ducks to draw out Japanese aircraft before they reach the main fleet. My father is below deck. He's a fireman, not the kind that fights fires in buildings, but the type that keeps a warship running. Boiler rooms, engine rooms, the hottest, darkest parts of the ship. Then it happens. The entire ship lurches. Men are thrown against bulkheads. Alarms blare. A kamikaze has hit them. A pilot has just flown his plane himself into the side of their ship. The room next to my father is on fire. Men are screaming. The metal is buckling from the heat. And my father gets an order. Close the door. That metal door separates the burning room from the rest of the ship. Close it, and you save the ship. You save hundreds of men. But the men in that room? My father closed the door. He listened to his friends die, felt the heat through the metal, smelled the burning. The USS Hyman survived. My father survived. But something inside him did not.
Japanese kamikaze plane was attacking him. Dad was a fireman. He would have been down in the bottom of the ship, but went up to a turret that was up on the top of the destroyer. That was USS Hyman was the name of the boat. The kamikaze hit them. The destroyers have two big torpedoes, and the kamikaze hit the one torpedo, which almost split the destroyer in half. As the time went on, when they unlocked all the turrets, there's two of them. All they saw was their buddies blowed up, and the sharks were eating them. They actually floated all the way to Hawaii without an escort. It was pretty breathtaking. Really put him mentally, really hurt his, I don't know how to say it. Yeah, yeah.
It's 1950, 6 years after the war. My father is 24 years old, and my mother is 17. He married his sweetheart, Helen. They have their first child. He's stillborn. And 3 days later, my father disappears. 5 days pass. No one knows where he is. My mother is frantic. They find him in a cornfield in Ohio with a knife.
I saw Bill the first time I was working in the restaurant, and he had been discharged from the Navy, and that's the first time I saw Bill.
Was he seated at a table, or did you see him walk in?
See, I saw him walk in.
Did you seat him?
They introduced me to him, and I didn't think much about it, but I thought he was really handsome.
So did you have much of a conversation with Bill the first time?
Not a lot. We didn't talk. Mother and Daddy were not letting me go out with him because he was too old for me. And we kind of sneaked around.
Oh, you snuck around. Yeah. So for all the great kids and great grandkids and
Yeah.
all of them, you snuck around to meet Bill. Okay.
Well, everybody thought he was too old for me, but he was so timid. He just, the first 4 dates we had, he never even touched me, let alone kissed me or anything else. He just was very...
So you mentioned he had a pretty neat car. Now, did you fall in love with him over his car or over him?
He had a convertible. He had gotten out of the Navy, and of course, he didn't talk about the Navy. He never talked about being in the service, and that was... It should have warned me a little bit, because he wanted to forget whatever he had seen, and he couldn't forget it.
Yeah. He had seen too much.
Yeah.
Of the 50 million men drafted in World War II, nearly half died. But millions more came home with invisible wounds. They called it shell shock. The government called it combat fatigue or war neurosis. Today we call it PTSD. My father was institutionalized at the Ohio State Hospital, and for over a year, he endured more than 20 insulin shock treatments and up to 30 electrical shock treatments. That was the cure back then. Shock the trauma out. My mother visited him every week, and slowly, in that hospital, he started to talk. The door, the fire, the screams, the pieces started to come together.
They would talk about the war until, and then you told us not to ask no more questions. We're in the camper.
So what do you mean?
And he was telling us stories about the war. And when it got to the part where they put people to sea, when they died, that's where you told him, well, okay, that's enough, kids. Now, you remember that?
I was afraid if he ever had another breakdown, I don't know whether I could get through it or not. Because it was a terrible year when he was in the state institution. We had a terrible year that year. We lost our house, and I lost everything because I couldn't work.
Growing up, we were unaware of any of this. Dad was just Dad, quiet, worked hard, kept to himself. But now and then, a crack would appear. I was 6 years old. My job was to help my dad burn the trash in the backyard. This was the 60s. You could still do that. He taught me how to light it, how to feed it, and how to control it. But I noticed something strange. My father was afraid of the fire, not cautious, afraid. The smell would hit him, and he'd step back. He'd go quiet. His hands would shake just slightly. One evening, sitting by the fire, he told me, I had to close the door once. There was a fire on the other side. I could hear them, but I had to close the door. I didn't really understand then. I was 6. I understand now. Years later, my sister Debbie asked Dad, what was the worst part of the war? He did not hesitate. Burying the dead at sea, not the battles, not the kamikaze, not closing the door. Putting his friends in the ocean. My father died February 16th, 1989. He was 63 years old, born too small to live, survived 3 major battles, survived a kamikaze strike, survived his own darkness. 63 years. He never talked about being a survivor. He didn't see himself that way. To him, he was just a man who kept going, a man who closed the door, a man who came home. But here's what I've learned about survival. It's not about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. My father was afraid of fire for 50 years, but every week he taught me how to control it. That's survival. 1 pound, 12 ounces, set aside to die in a shoebox, but he didn't die. He lived, he fought, he loved, he built a family, he carried his scars, and he kept going. Not because he was superhuman, but because he was a survivor. And his story, it survives too. This has been Survivor. Share this story and remember his name. Honor the millions who came home, and the battles that they still fight.